Good evening and welcome to the Cabinet meeting of the 6th of May, last one of the municipal year, and I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the meeting. I want to just quickly start by reflecting, of course, we've had elections for the other upper tier authority since we last met as a Cabinet, and they've had a change of administration. We don't yet know who will be running that new administration. As both Teresa and I have said elsewhere, we will work constructively with whoever we have to work with, particularly on the issues of things like health through the Integrated Care Partnership, and of course on the conversations around local government reorganisation and devolution, which of course sits with the two upper tier authorities. I'd want to take a moment to thank all those councillors who have served local government. And in particular, although not of my political party and our political party, I'd want to thank Roger Goff for his partnership working. And it was across all 14 councils of all political persuasions that we've been having those conversations, particularly around LGR and devolution. And obviously, we wait to see what happens next with our friends at Kent County Council. I've got an apology for absence from Harinder. He's on his way. He's just delayed by a couple of moments. The record of decisions of the 8th of April. Are colleagues happy for me to sign those decisions? Thank you. And are there any disclosable pecuniary interests or other significant interests people wish to declare tonight? No, thank you. Let's move then to the first substantive item. Item 4, the Better Care Fund. Teresa, over to you.
Thank you very much, Vince, and everybody. And I'd just like to start actually by not talking about the Better Care Fund, but talking about how fantastically successful the Sweeps Festival was this weekend. Thank you, Nina, for all of the work you've done on that in your portfolio, and to all of our staff who kept the huge crowds safe, enjoying the sunshine, and everybody that was involved in all of the great music, food, all of our traders, entertainment for all ages. And I think even on a chillier end, a really good time was had by all. So it was a great start to the free festival season in Medway. And free festivals, having a link, are of course part of our prevention agenda, because having places to go and interesting cultural things to do help people reduce social isolation and stay independent and part of our community. And in part, that's what the Better Care Fund is about. This is a statutory document. Can I thank Leanne, please, and all of the team in commissioning, particularly Sue Irvine and Joe Friend, because this is a complicated document. It's worth £38 million. It is a hugely complex piece of work that has to be approved by NHS England and indeed whatever the legacy organisation for them will end up being. It speaks jointly to our work with Kent and absolutely is critical to ensuring that we work with all of our partners in the Kent and Medway health family, taking care of discharges from hospital, making sure that people have got the right care in their homes and keeping them safe there, as well as funding many, many elements of the important prevention of poor health agenda. So you're being asked to approve it. You're being asked to please Cabinet delegate authority to the Deputy Chief Executive. It's had to already be submitted to NHS England. That was for provisional part that needed to be done by the end of March. This is the final piece in the jigsaw of making sure that the Better Care Fund is approved. It's got very stringent monitoring arrangements, so there's a lot of reporting associated with the way that this money is spent. And all that being said, we don't really know what the future of the Better Care Fund is. It may next year, as part of the government's very welcome plans of giving us a 3-year settlement, be rolled into the whole of the budget. That isn't certain. So it might be the last year that we do this in this way, but it definitely won't be the last year that we do all of the work associated with what the Better Care Fund buys. So I'm very grateful for this detailed report. You can see in it all of the things that the Better Care Fund pays for. And I look forward to those things going as smoothly as possible with all of our partners and this money being used wisely and transparently, as I'm asking for your approval tonight.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Any colleague? Tracy, please.
I just want to say thank you very much as well for this report. Very detailed and, as you say, very complex. It's going to make a huge difference to people. It's going to be holding others to account, making sure that we get the best for those in our community who need aftercare from hospital, who need to be moved on at the right time. And it's very welcome to see this being brought to Cabinet today. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Nina?
Yes, thank you. I would also like to join Tracy in thanking the officers as well, because I think one of the key strengths of this report is how it advocates for better integration of services so that it's more seamless and consistent service for residents across Medway, which is a good thing, and also holding to account where needed and the monitoring that is going to be in place. So I do think that this is quite robust. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nina. Any other colleague? No, before I come back to you, Teresa, I mean, I think you're certainly right to place this in the context of where the NHS and the Department for Health and Social Care currently is. We know that there's going to be big changes there. We need to ensure that we're having our voice heard within that, both individually for Medway, but as part of that wider local government family. And I know you do some fantastic work on the LGA group centrally on this. It's important to make sure we're taking those experiences from Medway, which we've had plentiful, and sharing them appropriately. And absolutely recognising at the heart of this is about trying to deliver better outcomes for our residents. So that does mean partnership working. That does mean, taking the lead as a council, absolutely, and working collaboratively, which again, over the past 2 years, I think we've got a strong track record, and we continue to do so. Teresa, back to you.
Yeah, thank you everybody for your support, and it is important. 2 more thank yous. Thanks to everybody on the Health and Wellbeing Board who looked at this carefully and made sure that we understand the way that fits into our joint health and wellbeing strategy, and to Scrutiny, who also looked at this carefully to make sure that patients were properly represented. And I'm really pleased to say that there was a patient forum for every part of the service, so we heard the voice of those people who actually are going to be recipients of the service, and that will continue to be critical. And the monitoring, I'm confident, will make sure that if there are hiccups along the way, and indeed we have had already this year, and the plan isn't even fully approved yet, a care home go into special measures locally and 2 care agencies. These things will happen when you're working in a wide arena with partners. We've got to be there to support people to come out of that, because we are commissioning the places in that residential home, the services of one of those home care providers for people that we're looking after. So scrutiny and continual monitoring of the way this money is spent and the facilities that are provided through the spend will continue to be critical. But I'm confident that, particularly with the strengthening of the adult social care division that we've done, that monitoring will happen, that as problems come up, we will be able to address them and indeed anticipate them.
Thank you very much indeed, Teresa. The recommendations agreed? Thank you very much. Let's then move on to the next item, which sits with me, the One Medway Financial Improvement and Transformation Plan, 25-26 refresh, otherwise known as the FIT plan. And I want to start this item by placing on record my thanks particularly to Phil Watts, who's done some outstanding work on this with his team. But of course, by the very nature of it being a One Medway FIT plan, all parts of the council have contributed to it as we're moving forward. And I'm incredibly proud of the work that's been happening over the last 2 years and continues to happen. I draw colleagues' attentions to paragraph 5. That shows you, in really practical terms, the things that we're ensuring happens as a cabinet and as a council. So we are looking for transformational change. We're ensuring value for money. We're looking for that financial sustainability. And it's about collaboration and partnership working. And really importantly, workforce development. And for the avoidance of doubt, you can have workforce development if your staff are working from home. So look, I'm really clear that this is a journey. We're on a journey. There's more to do, but the first 2 years have been a positive approach to this. And I think actually, those are not my words. I'd encourage everybody, and I know all Cabinet members and CMT colleagues have already. If colleagues haven't seen those important words from SIPFA, and I'll talk more about SIPFA in my closing remarks on this item, you know, they are an independent voice, and they've seen very clearly the positive progress, the difficult political decisions, but recognising the collaborative approach that we've taken in doing so. So I think the plan is a really helpful next step on our journey. We have to do this, you know, it's the right thing to do, and we probably would be doing this anyway, but we're obliged to, obviously, because of our situation with exceptional financial support. I think one of the really positive elements of the plan, and you can see it throughout, is the quite old-fashioned but really positive, because people understand it. We said we would do this, and this is what we've done. And some colleagues around the Cabinet may wish to highlight examples of that. So from my perspective, a really clear example, people who are interested in what is happening with their, you know, £620 million a year, what's happening with that finance, how are we managing it for them on their behalf? They can see where we're making improvements, where we're income generation, making efficiency savings, working collaboratively. So again, huge thanks to everyone who's pulled this fantastic plan together, and it will take us on those next steps in that journey to financial sustainability. I'll pause there, and colleagues, if there's anything you want to say, please do. I'll take Teresa first, and then I'll come round.
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much, Vincent, and, you know, huge thanks to Richard and to Phil and to all the staff who, at lots of different levels of management in the council, have embraced this work when they've also got lots and lots of other things to do. But it's because they've recognised the importance of financial monitoring and the importance of being open and transparent and credible. So I do feel very grateful for the professionalism that people have shown and for their continued commitment to making this work, because it can't just sit on the shelf. It is a plan that has to be monitored all the way through the year to see how our efficiencies and indeed investments and spends are matching up to the aspirations of the plan. And I think one of the really strong elements about it, and I'm sure you're going to talk about this, Simon, is the fact that climate change is at the heart of it. Nothing is forgotten. Our commitments right across the council are enshrined in this plan, and that has been noticed, as you say, by independent external scrutinisers, and no one has had anything to hide here. Staff have understood the importance of being transparent, understood the importance of showing financial credibility, and been very willing to join with us on this journey. So as you say, as we're coming to the end of year two, a real change, a step change in terms of financial management, and a step change in terms of our confidence for managing the finances of council as we go forward.
Thank you very much, Teresa. I've got Tracy.
Thank you very much. It's really pleasing to see the progress that we're making towards financial sustainability. 2 years ago, when we took administration of this authority, it was in a real mess, and the predecessors were not taking any steps really to tackle this. So we've gotten SIPFA in to take a good hard look at the books. We've followed their advice, and it's very pleasing that their report came back and let us know that it was not due to our financial mismanagement. It was because of the national picture and other pictures. So it's so good to see that we are looking at value for money, looking at different technologies and how they can benefit us. By developing our workforce in the longer term, we'll be saving money because we won't be employing people on temporary contracts and more expensive contracts, and that we're making really good progress towards financial stability. And also that we're not afraid to spend to save, taking that longer term view that we'll spend money, but we know that in the long run that will be the best thing for Medway and for Medway residents. So it's very pleasing to see the progress that's being made towards this plan.
Thank you very much indeed, Tracy. Simon?
Yeah, thanks very much. Before I mention about this plan, I just want to reflect back on the Soups Festival as well. It was great fun and really successful. So a huge thanks to Nina and all the staff who delivered on that. In particular, I want to mention the boat ride, which was great fun. The Limehouse landing has now opened and the boats are going to be regularly going from there. And we had a really good day on Saturday going out there for a trip. It was great fun. I highly recommend it to, well, it's at a very reasonable cost as well. So that's good news on that one. Just on the FIT plan, again, reflecting colleagues' comments on this, hugely important piece of work, a real way of not just managing and monitoring the here and now, but the future planning that we've got to do as well. Teresa mentioned about the climate issue, and I just wanted to reflect briefly on the changes we're making to our waste services and how we're managing that going into the future. We've got a real challenge ahead of us. The changes in legislation and regulation around waste means that the way we do it now is going to become extremely expensive. We have to change the process, and we're in the middle of doing that. I've already mentioned that we've got our new waste fleet has arrived, and we're arriving. There's still a few more to come, I think, but so we've got that in hand, and these are much more environmentally friendly vehicles. They do manage to waste, allow us to manage to waste differently and much more efficiently. So it's great news that we've got the vehicles here now to do the work. But the waste improvement plan that's on its way now is being formulated. The whole drive behind that is to reduce the amount of waste we produce and then recycle as much as we possibly can. It's no longer sustainable just to keep sticking it a hole in the ground or incinerating it. That's not the future for anybody in the world, really, never mind Medway. But in order to do that, it's not going to be cheap, it's going to be difficult, and it's going to be complex. And this FIT process allows us to manage and monitor the expense and the process of delivering this new strategy in a really sensible and efficient way. So I really welcome this. It's just one example of how the FIT plan is making a difference in the delivery of what we're trying to achieve here in Medway. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Simon. Nina?
Thank you. I would like to join Cabinet members in thanking Phil Watts as well as senior leadership. And also, I think this feedback, especially that's highlighted in 12.2, paragraph 12.2 from CIPFA, is a considerably remarkable feedback considering where we were when the administration took office. And just to see how much more confidence that CIPFA has in the leadership as well as the strong collaboration and challenge in achieving the Council's vision and around our common agenda and common values. I think that goes to show that we are extremely committed in ensuring that we are on track towards achieving financial sustainability, but also that we are very responsible in how we manage the finances here at Medway Council. There is also the degree of transparency has been highly commendable. And I think as we all know, the quality of reports that has also been highlighted by CIPFA and to the committees as being very good is also once again testament to how hard the officers are also working to make sure that every report gives us a clear picture of how the public money has been spent on the good residents of Medway and delivering the services. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much indeed, Nina. Harinder.
Thank you, Vince. Yeah, just to add that I think it's very easy to come up with lazy criticisms of local government. I think it's very popular, and you'll get very, how do I say, simple solutions for very complex problems. And actually, if you take a look at the report rather than any sort of gloss over that, people might just sort of just gloss over the meeting, but actually dive down, look at the report, and as Teresa said, there's that the we said and what we did, and just have a look at the items that are being discussed and think, you know, this is the result of an in-depth dive into local government and sort of righting the ship and working with officers who have put so much work and effort into delivering this. For example, just taking one of the items here, so the idea that we developed disposal options for the Innovation Park Medway with a review and getting a background and initial market analysis and actually having realistic deliverable targets and deliverable sort of options for what was an item that had just been sitting on the books, essentially. Getting that underway and actually moving on it, and already seeing some tentative sort of results from on the back of that. It's a real marked difference between where we are now and where we were before as an administration, and it just goes to show what a difference a new leadership, a new administration can make, and allowing officers to work with their full talents and with the full backing of the leadership and seeing what they can do. So I'm I would really advise people to actually don't just sort of listen to the top lines, actually have a look at the sort of the details of this report, because it makes for really good reading, and not many people will take the time to say, actually, local government does good things when empowered, and here's an example of one of those things. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harinder. Got Luella next.
Thank you, Vince. Yeah, I just want to add my thanks to the officers and all staff, as Teresa said, at all levels, who are contributing by this constant monitoring to see where they can save money whilst delivering the services that we have to deliver and more, whilst also doing that job. So it's an extra job, this constant monitoring. So there's thanks for that, because all they're doing is trying to deliver the best value for money for residents. In terms of the housing, as Harinder's just highlighted, you know, you said we did, the ongoing purchase of our temporary accommodation and the launch of our One Medway lettings is driving up standards and driving down costs, which is effectively saving money for the Medway taxpayer. So it's a really worthwhile piece of work.
Thank you very much indeed, Luella. I can't see any other colleagues, so can I thank everyone for their contributions. This is difficult. This is hard work. And Tracy, you're absolutely right to highlight what the first SIPFA report said, that Medway Council's finances were in a grave situation. And it's taken graft and collaboration and people around this table and lots of other people in the council and elsewhere to get to the position of that second SIPFA report. But finances in local government have been talked about a lot over the last few days. Reform UK have been making headlines saying that they're going to bring in to councils that they're now running Doge-style units, or some kind of watchdog to check public spending. Well, here in Medway, as you've heard from all of my cabinet colleagues tonight, we've already done that, but we've done it properly. We didn't bring in a bunch of mates on consultancy rates. We brought in SIPFA, the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy. That is the UK's trusted public finance watchdog. They literally wrote the book on managing public money. They carried out one full independent review of Medway's finances and confirmed we were in a challenging place. They've then carried out a second full independent review and confirmed we're taking the difficult but necessary steps to restore financial sustainability. As one or two colleagues referenced, they've highlighted in that plan and that report that a great deal of effort and focus has gone into developing the FIT plan, and it's already delivering savings. And as Harinder very helpfully pointed out, you know, have a look there. We've made it clear so people can pick that up. If you're not a local government finance expert, you can see that. They said that our financial reporting was high, very high, even exemplary. And they've recognised that we've made some politically unattractive decisions, because that's what leadership looks like, particularly in tough financial times. And let's be honest, the pressures that we're under here around this table of cabinet colleagues, that's not unique to Medway, but they're huge. And in the words of SIPFA, the most significant financial challenges, and hence the most significant financial pressures for financial sustainability, are in the areas of children's and adult social care. That's social care, that's vulnerable children, that's housing challenges for families here in Medway. Those are not optional extras, they're legal duties. So some councils may choose to bring in their own people, their mates. We've done it the right way. We've done it with hard graft, collective work, and working hard. We've owned the challenge. We've recognised that. We've been the most transparent administration we've ever had in this area. We're taking action. We're working with experts, with professional oversight, with clear accountability to our residents. And while some may want to grab headlines, we're getting on with the work here in Medway, and I'm very proud of the work that every Cabinet member and every member of staff at Medway Council are doing day in, day out. I will therefore move the proposals as laid out in the papers. Are those agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much, everybody. Let's then move on to the next item, another fantastic update on the issue of Medway 2.0. Alex, over to you.
Thanks, Vince. I saved everyone listening to me twice on this matter. I would have spoken on the last item, just to point out that fundamental to that FIT report is also the transformation plan, of which Medway 2.0 is a critical part. And just to pick up on what Vince has just said about you know, how important it is that we take that wider view of things rather than the headline grabbing view or the short-term approach. And it applies to so many areas, not just within my portfolio, whether it's ending the fixation, the whack-a-mole fixation with fixing potholes temporarily, rather than having a long-term approach to quality patching repairs of larger areas of carriageway, to going back to the brass tacks of how we actually do business as a council and how we interact with the most important people in the council, and that is residents, and how they interact with all those services. And there's no quick fix for that, whether the people that have just taken control of Kent County Council think that they can have a headline grabbing approach to this. I think people will very quickly see the difference between a responsible administration which is prepared to leave no stone unturned and looking at where the log jams exist, where real waste happens, and it's not in any of the areas that I'm afraid came up in election communications elsewhere in the country in the last few weeks. It's actually in accidental areas. So, for example, Medway 2.0 is rethinking the way that we interact with the council, because the numbers speak for themselves. There are services we offer which are entirely online, or at least should be, and certainly are the way that most residents would in the first place interact with them. For example, booking a tip slot, which you can do online, and yet that still resulted in 2,934 telephone calls to Medway Council last year. Not to book the appointment, although that will account for a small number of that, but because we have a computer system, a legacy computer system, which doesn't allow you to change your appointment online once you've done it. It doesn't allow you to have a same-day appointment, and it doesn't allow you to cancel the appointment. So what we are doing is not fixing those individual things, like fixing the individual potholes. We're looking at how this actually looks as part of a bigger picture. We're essentially tearing everything up and starting again, but not leaving residents in the lurch. This is a gradual process. This is something that we are doing in a considered way. And so, since it was brought to Cabinet on 30th of July last year, as one of the first reports that I was able to bring to Cabinet, approving the processes that would be the trailblazers as part of Medway 2.0, I'm really pleased to report some fantastic progress that has actually happened since then, some tangible results for residents, and that includes what I think is one of the best successes, which is a nuisance vehicle reporting system, which combines 4 separate processes which reported to multiple different databases, and I think quite appallingly sometimes led residents to a dead end, where it's not necessarily the council's responsibility every time there is a vehicle which is a nuisance vehicle. Sometimes it will be a police responsibility. Sometimes it will be an untaxed vehicle, which will be the responsibility of DVLA. But those previous processes handed that back to the resident and said, not our problem, you sort it. That's not what happens now. From the ground up, in-house, our team has built new processes which lead the resident through all the necessary steps to tell them exactly what it is they are reporting, because it might not be clear. Is it an abandoned vehicle, an untaxed vehicle? Is it parked illegally or in an inconvenient way? Is it a business using the highway, public highway to sell vehicles? So we don't expect residents to know all of these things, but we now have a process built from the ground up that takes them step by step, hand in hand, and if it gets to the point where it's not something that Medway Council officers can fix, it asks them, would you like us to report it to DVLA for you? It's a straightforward click, yes or no. So we're not asking people to suddenly take this upon themselves. We are your local council. We will lead you through the steps because we want to see these nuisance vehicles off our streets as well, because we're all Medway residents too. So I think it's about having those services designed by Medway residents, and that's absolutely critical. This is not some off-the-shelf tech solution that we're buying here. This is about thinking back to a process and building it using in-house experts. And that means that we get something that is right for Medway, not right for Swale or Dartford or KCC. It's right for Medway because it's the way we operate and it covers our specific areas of responsibility. I'll try and move on quickly because you could talk for hours about this report, and I certainly don't intend to, and I'd like to hear from colleagues. But I think it's important to see what's happening right now, and that is some of the workshops which are now taking place. The things which we did for the nuisance vehicles processes last year are now happening in other areas. So we're tackling that household waste centre appointments system. That's a workshop which took place last week, I believe. We're working with our housing team to develop their processes. And so, there is now work expanding and building on what's been done already, because when you boil it down, there are actually a limited number of processes that the council uses. A lot of them can be grouped under whether it's request it, booking an appointment, or paying for it, or reporting it. Whether it, so what you do to report a nuisance vehicle, it's a fairly straightforward leap to then think how you would develop a new system for reporting fly tipping. So we're not reinventing the wheel each time. It's it is an incredibly efficient process because we are not employing external consultants to charge us an arm and a leg. This is expertise that's happening in-house. And actually, in the last 5 months, the brilliant team which Paul Boyd heads has built 33 forms and workflows in that time, all in-house. So I think that's an incredible rate of return. And I think we are going to start to see an exponential increase in the pace of this project. There are people who are impatient. We have an opposition who are entirely short-termist in their view. You only have to go back to the budget meeting in February to know that they wanted to cut the funding for this critical money-saving project in half. They wanted to emasculate the project. They wanted to nobble it because all they could see is the short-term fix, the narrow vision. And I'm afraid this is not some, TED talk, or this isn't, I'm not speaking here like Steve Jobs addressing an Apple conference somewhere. This is not airy-fairy and conceptual. This is actually the nitty-gritty of what local government is about, and it's what we are getting on with. It's a better approach, and it's giving users a better experience. Now, for all that I might criticise that short-term approach of opposition colleagues, we did have the first meeting of our member user testing group on the 25th of March, which brought together a cross-party body of councillors to have a look at the processes as developed so far, to offer commentary on where they thought they could be improved. I think there were some useful comments from members from all sides, and I'm really pleased that we are taking that collaborative approach. Despite what might be happening in councils up and down the country, we still believe that we have more in common than that which divides us, and we try and work collaboratively and positively to delivering solutions rather than scapegoating, bean counting and the sort of nonsense that we hear from elsewhere. So from that meeting, there were suggestions and fixes which were delivered within a week by our in-house team. So it's not a case of sending off to Cupertino in California and asking if software developers could perhaps consider it in the next iteration of the software. It happens right away because it happens at Gun Wharf, made in Medway. You know, and I think that's a really proud boast after, you know, generations of ships that were built in Chatham. Now we are building the next generation of services delivered to Medway residents, built in Chatham, built in Medway, and proud to be Medway. And I think that's a real testament to the skill of the team. Just to touch on a couple of other things, which I think are sort of quite modish, and that is to talk about AI. And there's certainly an increasing role for AI as part of this Medway 2.0 approach. Really proud that on International Workers' Memorial Day, we were able to launch our very first iteration of a staff wellbeing AI chatbot. So a service which will offer staff answers to straightforward well-being requests that might guide them, signpost them towards services that can assist, whether that's within the council and within our HR structures, or whether it's to external organisations such as the NHS. So really apt that that was launched on International Workers' Memorial Day when we remember those people who one day went out to work and never came home again. And this, I think, is us living up to the slogan of remember the dead and fight for the living. What we are doing is helping residents, helping staff with better processes, less repetitive work. So I think that's also something I really want to highlight here in terms of a wedge issue, if you like, a parting of the ways, a difference in approach between me and my opposite number. I think that this Medway 2.0 report is seen by certain individuals as an opportunity to bin staff, to cast important, hard-working council officers on the scrap heap for no reason other than to make a ludicrous alternative budget add up. I'm not looking at it that way. That's not what this is about. I don't think there are any council staff who couldn't be better employed using the skills, using their training in a more full way in their daily work, rather than carrying out repetitive tasks. So that's the other thing that we have managed to use AI for. So within adult social care, we are trialling the use of an AI transcribing tool to deliver a transcript of meetings with residents, with customers after the event, which is saving a significant amount of time. The estimate from our team is that it's saving them about 5 hours of work per week each that they would have spent writing up reports after having the meeting, rather than reading the reports, refining the reports, and looking at next steps and delivering better solutions for our residents. That's 5 hours more that each of those people can spend on those tasks that they are best skilled to do. I don't want them to be tied up in repetitive processes. It's no different from when we have extra bobbies on the beat delivered by Kent Police. Nobody wants them to spend their time filling in forms when they could be doing the job of community and neighbourhood policing. And so that's the same principle that we are applying here to all strands of the organisation. So my message to council staff is that they should not fear this process, and certainly those departments who have proactively embraced it have found that it has delivered solutions that were not even conceived of back on the 30th of July last year when I brought this to Cabinet. We're developing processes, we're adding to processes, because actually the fix is so straightforward. When you speak to the people who know what they're talking about, the experts, the highly trained staff that we have. So Medway 2.0 is not a new piece of software, it's not a new app, it's a new way of thinking. And I think that's absolutely critical. I'll just briefly touch on something else that's coming up, and that is an aspect of the artificial intelligence, which also touches upon another area of my portfolio on highway repairs, and about the the new system of route reports where we're attaching cameras to our vehicles. So the council's fleet of vehicles will be reporting back in real time on the quality of roads, where roads have deteriorated, so that we can actually target those areas most in need with what are very scarce resources. You know, people will have seen over the last few weeks some fantastic bits of resurfacing on Star Hill, on Medway Road. They will have seen that we are living up to our promise on these things. But there are scarce resources. We can't do everything, and so it's absolutely critical that we do the things which are most of a priority. You know, that's absolutely what the responsible council would do and what responsible councillors would do. Not grabbing headlines, not asking for a pothole to be fixed because it happens to be outside an opposition councillor's house, for example. That's not the way we operate. It's not the way this party operates. It's not the way this administration operates. And so we are about prioritising things for residents, not for ourselves, because that's who we are actually sitting here tonight to deliver for. And I think these processes are an excellent example of the way that we can do that. Very finally, I'll touch on the trialling of processes for our new integrated hubs. Again, I want people to be really clear that integrated hubs will not be a rebadged library or a rebadged anything else that we already do. It's about making sure that we actually apply the same critical thinking that we've done with all of these electronic processes to everything, that every interaction, face-to-face interactions, whether it's on Microsoft Teams, but any of those interactions that people have with the council should be thought about and rethought about in these ways, going back to the process. Where does the problem kick in? Where are the things that delay issues being resolved, so that we don't end up with a very efficient process that suddenly creates a big queue of things at the other end that don't get done, but actually looking at how we can do that in an efficient way that delivers better for residents, and in that sort of approach which uses the best of new technology, but it's not wedded to technology, because ultimately I want people to be able to interact with the council how they want to interact. If you tell some of my elderly relatives that they have to do everything online, that would not be the most efficient way for them to interact with the council. But if you told me that I had to make a telephone call each time, in fact, tell anyone younger than me that they'd have to actually talk to a human being on the telephone, and they will be appalled at the prospect. So we all need to meet the council where we are at any stage in our life journey. I want there to be telephony services for residents who are most comfortable using those. I want there to be a system where emails can be answered. And I also want people to be able to do the bulk of this stuff online if that is how they choose to do it. But that's what this is. It's not a new system. It's not a new app. It's not going to be out of date very quickly because it's never going to be finished. Sorry about that. Another apology to the opposition if they come back asking about progress on these things. This will never be finished. It should never be finished. It's a process, a constant process of transformation, a constant process of renewal, and that's absolutely the right approach. And I'm really pleased to bring this report to Cabinet and ask colleagues to support the recommendations.
Thank you very much indeed, Alex. Comprehensive and absolutely welcome that. I've got a number of hands. Harinder, then Teresa.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Patterson, for that report. And you beat me right at the end. It was the point that I wanted to make, which was, it was kind of peppered in your report back anyway, but I think it bears repeating anyway, that transformation plans and also upheavals in technology, when they are taken on board to update processes, they tend to fail when it's not seen as an iterative process and when it's seen as like a package that you can buy from a provider and then that's done and you leave it there, and by the time it's implemented it's already out of date. So I really, really wanted to make that point, but you made it really eloquently, so I just want to repeat on that I think all of us as a council need to understand that as an administration. I think the opposition need to understand it. I think everyone in the council, whatever level they're working at, need to know that this is iterative, that everyone has an input, that each process that they're a part of should somehow tie into it and can be improved in some way. It's essentially finding efficiencies in our processes and looking at the outcomes as you were describing. So as long as we take that as the lesson, and that's really the only output of the report, that the lesson is actually this involves all of us and it's iterative and it needs to be improved on again and again, that's the output for this report. The rest of the actual sort of Medway 2.0 implementation is forevermore, and it will carry on and on and on and on. So as long as we understand that this is not a process that's going to just provide us with something that's, you know, done and dusted and that's it, and that will always need improvement, I think that is really well put, really well said, and as long as we understand it to our core, we're going to have a fantastic product, even if it means further investment down the line, down the future, given that we're going through another wave of technological change. I think there are a lot of opinions about AI and automation and other such things, and we need to pay attention to them and we need to invest in them, and I'm not being skeptical about it at all, but we don't know which way it could go, whether it's more sort of deeply integrated or whether it's more sort of sits alongside what we do. We're not entirely sure, and so it's something that we have to constantly review. So I'm so glad, and so yeah, I'm happy that this is the way it's being taken by yourself, the officers, Paul Boyd's team, and all the members as well. That this it's good news for Medway.
Thank you very much. Teresa.
Yeah, thank you, Alex, and thank you to Paul and all the teams. This is evolution, not revolution, and that's exactly what it should be. And I think one of the reasons that some of the changes that have already happened have been successful is because for staff across the council, they trust their colleagues. It's not someone coming in from outside to sell them, as Harinder's just said, a wonder product and then go away again. It's about listening to each other and thinking about what we want the technology to do to improve services. And I wanted particularly to draw people's attention to magic notes in adult social care. Alex referred to it. This is an AI system that allows people to record assessments and other interactions that social workers and occupational therapists have with the clients that we're looking after. And where the magic really happens is that those lovely human faces can concentrate on each other. The social workers can watch carefully how someone's reacting because they're not any longer writing notes on a pad. The recipients of our services, the people we're looking after, consent to being recorded. If they don't want to be recorded, they don't have to. We can revert to handwritten notes. But mainly, it's about not having to worry about doing that. It's about being able to look somebody in the eye, look around the room, see how things are going in the house, look at the family, use all of those human interactions and instincts to actually make a much more qualitative, friendly interview and get the very best from it, so that whatever comes out of the service that we decide at the end, whether it's a package of care, whether it's a home adaptation, whether it's a recommendation to get involved in something in the community, that interaction has been much more real and much more shared than it was when people were making notes. And it's really good to be able to work with the 2.0 team to evaluate that and find how much time has been saved. And when I went along to the away day that we had with the Adult Social Care Division, this was mentioned to me in a very positive way by staff. They like using it and they feel that they get absolutely a more qualitative, more time with the people that they're looking after and can use, as I say, their professional instincts, their very human instincts to make sure that the assessment that they carry out absolutely speaks to the needs of the person. So it's a really good example of how AI will never replace the sophistry and humanity of people, but it can definitely help make all of those skills greatly enhanced and save us a bit of time when we need it to put into something else. No one needs to be scared of it, as you said, Alex. We've got 80 new staff coming into adult social care, and many of those people will come straight into this system. They won't have to worry. They'll be able to get straight on with using it. And actually, if you're coming new to a job, if you're coming fresh to an area, having something like that makes that even easier, because obviously our new staff are really anxious to be up and running and getting to know our area and the people that we're caring for. So I feel very positive about this particular element of it, and also about the well-being chatbot as well. It was lovely to have such a well-attended International Workers' Memorial Day in the castle grounds, one of the best ones that we've had for the last few years, and to hear the reflections from all of the faith groups across Medway on what AI can mean and how we can manage it together as a community. And it's good to have a way for our staff to know that if they want something, they can have access to it easily. They can enhance their jobs, they can share their problems, they can take part in solutions much more quickly than before. They don't have to have a meeting about it. They can actually use the bot to start that process, and whatever's needed later we can bring on. So yeah, 2.0, 2.0 plus, it's going well.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Luella?
Thank you. Yeah, I really support this work. As Alex said, building this in-house from scratch gives us the best opportunity to tailor-make it, not just to suit the staff, but also the needs of our residents. Not just now, but also in the future, because having it in-house means any sort of future developments needed, any more releases needed on the system, doesn't mean we have to go outside without costly expenditure to pay another provider. I'm also pleased at the start of the new workshops that Alex mentioned going ahead, because that is going to make our residents' lives easier when it comes to making applications, reporting issues, finding out information. And I'm thankful that we have the skilled developers here in our Medway team that are able to work on this. So, yeah, really positive.
Thank you very much. I've got Nina, then Simon.
Thank you. This is a very helpful report, and thank you, Alex, for that detailed explanation on every bit of the report. Obviously goes to show how much each of us are invested in our portfolios as well, and really thankful to the officers as well for the update. I'm particularly excited about the Integrated Hubs project, because I think one thing that we have a vision of is to have that joined up approach where, you know, there's one Medway approach where rather than working in silos, different departments can offer support and advice at one place, so that service users can have that sort of holistic support where needed. So thank you for that. And it looks like service users' feedback has been instrumental as we develop this further. And this also goes to show that, you know, where there is areas for improvement, Medway Council, our officers, and us as a cabinet, we're forward-thinking in embracing everything that is there to make our officers and our staff members' lives that much easier, because time is a valuable a resource at the moment, and also to make sure the residents have the best sort of support available. So a fantastic report. The other thing that I really wanted to take this moment to, I'm digressing a little bit, but I did want to pay my thanks and huge well done to the events and culture team for the huge success of Sweeps, the 43rd Sweeps, Rochester Sweeps Festival, where we here in Medway, we welcomed 75,000 visitors. Can you imagine? And it all went to plan because a team of hardworking senior leaders, as well as partners, And the hundreds of performers, dancers, musicians, the police, the ambulance service, traffic management, our amazing comms team as well. And in particular, I would like to pay tribute to Paul Cowell, the head of culture and events, and also Sammy Popple and the team, as well as Deadline Security, who were also instrumental in making sure that there was visible security all around. And everybody went away with wonderful memories of the 43rd Sweeps Festival, and also once again highlighting that Medway holds one of the biggest May Day festivals in the whole world. How amazing is that, right? So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I had that opportunity to thank everybody. And I would also like to thank media partners, in particular BBC Radio Kent and ITV Meridian, who gave us the opportunity to tell people outside of Medway as well, this is happening, it's a huge event, it's all free, it's fun, fantastic, and Medway welcomes you all. And yeah, so that was, again, very much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nina. I'm not sure whether AI can create Morris dancers yet, but not one for Medway 2.0, I don't think. But yeah, absolutely agree with all those comments. Simon, please.
Yeah, thanks very much, Dan. I mentioned that I agree completely with the comments that Nina made about the festival. It's great fun. Just to pick up on, I mean, obviously, thanks, Alex, and to Paul and the team for producing this report. And I wanted to pick up on a couple of comments made by colleagues already, but also focus on something. The word forever has been mentioned about 3 times, and that I've always talked about these forever services that we as an authority have to deliver. We don't have a choice. 150-something statutory services that we're, plus all the extras that go with it, and they're not simple to deliver, they're complex things to deliver, and behind the scenes there's all that huge amount of work done by the officers. So anything that makes their life easier and better and more efficient is always to be welcomed. And if in the consequences of that we provide that much improved service for our residents, then you can't knock it. We've had to put up with decades of austerity where local authority finances and resources have been hammered to the bone. And then we've got these reform councils coming in now who think they're going to hammer it even further. I mean, they're in for a bit of a culture shock, I'm sure, without any policies or ideas to back them up. So we're now living in a world where actually what we should be doing, and what we're doing here in Medway, is investing in the future, and that's what this is all about. If you look at the way the Medway 2.0 approach is, it's about saying, how can we make it easier and better for our residents to access services and get a much better deal for what they pay for their council tax and stuff like that. That's what this is all about. And just a couple of things that Alex mentioned about the route reports. I saw this in action about a year or so ago, and it is brilliant. These, we can put the cameras and the computers on our waste trucks and on other vehicles that the council has going through the streets every day of the week, and they can send back route reports to the highways officers. So rather than them having to drive around in vehicles and inspect every pot, it comes to them at their desk. The savings on staff time is brilliant because it means that they can focus on the repairs. Cost savings on vehicles is improved, and environmental impact is improved simply by doing it with the new technology that is now available. And not to do it would be mad. I mean, why wouldn't you do it? It's part of our forever services for the future. And similarly with the household waste recycling centres, I mean, we've heard some brilliant reports on how the satisfaction rates for the services that we provide in those centres is really high. And to keep that service at the level it's at the moment and build on it and improve on it in all the work that it does, introducing a system where it's a lot easier for our residents to access it, it makes all the sense in the world. So not to do this is just not an option, really. It's about thinking the future. So rather than living with the austerity, we should be investing in the future, and that's exactly what we're doing here. So I welcome this report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't think there was any other colleague who indicated, so before I go back to Alex, I would agree with what Cabinet colleagues have said. I think 2 or 3 things, on a project of this scale, and this is quite monumental to the services that we deliver across Medway, both for staff but most importantly for residents, across 285,000 people, you will find all of the kind of spectrum of expectation from why can't I see somebody in person to, blimey, your technology is about 30 years out of date, and everything in between. And I think what I'm really pleased with is the Medway 2.0 report we see today recognises that, recognises we're not just dealing with one homogenous type of resident who has got this much expertise in using technology, that actually we do need to take all of the public with us. And that's where actually the Integrated Hubs programme is critical, and it's one of our 5 key pledges. Let's never forget that as well. So from that perspective, I think there is some really good progress being made here. There is some spend to save. This will save both time and resources. Those are important things to do because they're important things to do. But as I referred to the previous report, it's the right thing to do as we go through our FIT plan approach. So Alex, thanks to you and all of the team who are making this happen. Absolutely want to recognise the cross-party working group on that. It's important. We will listen to good ideas. We don't have a monopoly on good ideas. We're always happy to hear from other colleagues, from residents, from other councillors, from council officers. You know, and I think if nothing else over the last 2 years, this administration, this cabinet has been the most available of any cabinet in the history of Medway Council, and we will be improving that, as I'll be saying in my closing remarks tonight. So huge thanks to you for your leadership on this, and huge thanks to the team working really hard to deliver this, which will ultimately, as others have said, lead to better outcomes for Medway residents. Back to you, Alex.
Thanks, Vince. I'm always a little bit nervous when I hear colleagues thank me for a detailed summary, which definitely suggests that I went on for far too long. Use another adjective, lengthy, or yes, hopefully nothing put in there that didn't need to be said, and certainly a lot that I've left out, I can assure you. Vince, you're absolutely right about the fact that we do need to meet residents where they are, and the process, because the way we are doing this, because it's not a new system, it's not a new app, it's not a new website, it's a new way of thinking. That means that the benefits of this are shared whether you are using an online form or whether you're talking to one of our customer service colleagues. Because the customer service agent is using the same form that some people are able to use directly. They're following the same steps, the same processes. So this is not some esoteric plan that will only be of interest and of benefit to computer geeks or people who are tech literate. It's actually really important that everyone shares in the benefit of the way this is being done, and I'm really confident that that is the way it's happening. Going to what Simon said, the sort of 20 years of council services being decimated, things being cut to the bone, the idea that if there's any slack, you cut it. And I think it goes back to what I said earlier about those 5 hours saved by the Magic Notes system, 5 hours per week saved. And I can genuinely imagine certain individuals on this council totting up how many members of staff that applies to. 5 hours saved per week times that number of staff is how many heads we can lose in that department. That is genuinely the short-sighted, ideological approach that they would have. The idea that, I'm afraid, and you're not going to get me to be less political, I'm afraid, but the idea that the answer to the ills of this country and what has happened over 20 years in this area and over the last 14 years of Conservative government is more of the same, more cuts, more austerity, Thatcherite economics from Nigel Farage. If you think that's the answer to the problems, you're definitely asking the wrong question. So I would absolutely caution anyone that thinks that the right approach to this is to streamline the processes and then cut any room in the system that it creates is off their head, frankly. It doesn't work. When people say, well, there's an intensive care bed free. Well, there needs to be an intensive care bed free. We need slack in the system so the system can work. And so creating the slack in the system for adult social care, allowing that human interaction, is a critical part of the process. It's not an added extra. And so the idea that that 5 hours saved is 5 hours that we can cut from the hours, from the pay of colleagues. That's not what this administration is doing, because we get it. We are residents. If people are frustrated with processes on the council, there's nobody more frustrated out of that 280,000 residents than me, because I am both frustrated by them and have a responsibility to find a way to do them better. But we are all in this room, Medway residents, we are all experiencing those frustrations. I don't have a hotline to get a tip appointment quicker than anybody else, and nor should I. So those frustrations that residents have are my frustrations too. When you can't do something online, when it's complicated, when it's a convoluted process, when you're asked 100 questions, when you just want to do the thing, I get it. And so do our officers, so does Paul Boyd, who is in charge of this project, and his team, who are performing absolute wonders on what is a pretty shoestring budget themselves. We are doing something pretty amazing with not a great deal. And I think that's really important. You know, Simon talked about that challenge. And I think, you know, when you have scarce resources, you have to work smarter. It's not about just finding more cuts. More cuts isn't going to work. More cuts is what got us into this terrible mess in the first place. And people have got very short memories if they expect those 20 years of failure to be turned around overnight. But that doesn't mean that I am not up for the challenge. And we have already done in 2 years more than I think the last administration did in their 20 in taking us forward as a council in facing the future together. And just picking up on, finally, Harinder talking about it being never finished, you know, it's absolutely true. If you think about this as Medway 2.0 without thinking there is going to be Medway 2.1, 2.11, Medway 3.0, and all the fantastic updates that I will hopefully will continue long after I have stopped talking in this chamber. And I don't mean that tonight. I mean leaving this mortal coil. This is a process that has to continue. The solution of a year ago is not the solution necessarily for tomorrow. I've come from an industry, in the newspaper industry, that has undergone absolutely incredible change in the last, well, 2 generations, really, from the days of newspapers being produced with hot metal type to then being produced using desktop publishing and then full colour printing and all of those processes, to about 15 years ago, newspapers worrying about how they were going to create an iPad edition. Who's thinking about an iPad edition of a newspaper now? We get our news in so many different ways that we can't conceive of, and the mistake made along the route of modernising some of these processes is in thinking that the method is the important bit, that the means of input is the critical thing, whether you're sending a photo or typing a postcode or sending a GPS code, whatever it is, that bit is less important than does the process work. Where is that information going and what is being done with it? And so, you know, at the risk of repeating myself again, it is about going back to basics on how we do things. And I would caution that to opposition members, please do not get hung up on whether everything works exactly like your favourite app or this or that, and why can't I do this and why can't I do that? By all means, we need to all contribute to can we do this better, but to get hung up on the individual processes, the individual input methods, you know, is it an app? Is it on the App Store? Is it on the Google Play Store? It doesn't. That is not what this is about. Some of these processes will end up in various ways on people's phones, and that's something that I'm really keen that if they want to do that, they can have. But that's not what this is about. It's bigger than that, and I'm grateful to colleagues for the support for this project, because it needs you to actually be tough on those people with short-term thinking. You know, this is not airy-fairy. It's about, you know, the fundamentals of what residents want from a council, but you would be doing them a disservice to chase every blind alley along the way. You have to take the step back. You have to take the strategic approach. As I say, I've come from an industry that has undergone incredible transformation. I have personal experience of this in my professional life. and therefore I understand what's needed. I understand the potential consequences of these things, but I'm confident that actually, all told, this is something that everyone can get behind, staff and residents, and I would be grateful for your support for the report.
Thank you very much indeed, Alex. Are the recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's move on to our penultimate item tonight. Gateway 1 procurement commencement. Zoe, over to you.
Thank you. And thank you to Adam and Sonny and Dan Stone for the work that they've put into this report. By way of background, RAAC, in full reinforced autoclave aerated concrete, was identified in October 2023 after Labour took control of the council earlier that year and was found in parts of the roof of Wharf. We initially closed the building as a precaution and arranged specialist surveyors to carry out a detailed assessment of the building. In spite of this, with the resilience of our staff, residents have still been able to access all of our services. Subsequently, we established safe and unsafe zones within Wharf, and work has been undertaken to establish whether other Medway buildings may have RAAC based on the year that they were built in the 1950s to 1990s. Prioritisation was undertaken according to levels of footfall. By early November, expert surveyors carried out detailed surveys of the entirety of Wharf to determine safe and potentially unsafe parts of the building. Only some areas were affected and staff safety made a priority, with some working from home, and this has been continuously monitored and adapted as appropriate, with council services able to run as normal. And some work has required relocation. A structural survey was undertaken in early 2024 and an addition made to the council's capital programme funded by prudential borrowing for repairs, and I'd like to say we're very grateful for the resilience of our staff in this process. This report seeks permission to commence the procurement for a principal building contractor to remediate the reinforced autoclaved aerated concrete panels and refurbish Wharf. Cabinet is asked to note the contents of the report at pages 139 to 158 of the agenda. It is further asked to approve the recommendation to commence an open market procurement as set out at section 5.1.3, which is option 3, to pursue the procurement of specialist building contractors to address the RAAC panels and to refurbish and improve Wharf, bringing it up to modern day standards. Whilst there may be concerns regarding expenditure for this week, the condition of the building, both in regard to any potential risks associated with the presence of RAAC and the present condition and internal appearance of our headquarters, diminishes the current and future value of the building. Any dilapidation can only worsen if appropriate works are not undertaken. Refurbishment will not only improve its value over and above the financial investment required, but will importantly provide opportunities to create a space that appropriately accommodates the needs of our staff and the wider population of Medway, and most of all ensuring health and safety needs. The paper thus sets out the benefits at paragraphs 3.1 and 3.2 of the paper. The discovery of RAAC in the roof of the building, once identified, required an assessment of risk, followed by appropriate remediation to mitigate such risk and to ensure the safety, integrity and maintenance of the building, thereby enhancing its value and providing an environment fit for the future, whether it is retained or sold as part of local government review. The priorities for the work are set out in order of importance at paragraph 4.5 of the report. And at paragraph 5, the three options for procurement of the work are set out. It is recommended that we agree option 3 for an open market procurement aimed at specialist and experienced contractors with a portfolio of RAAC remediation and experience of work on heritage properties. Bidders will be evaluated against the criteria set out in the table at 6.4.2 at page 143 of the report. The key risks and actions to avoid or mitigate them are set out in Section 7, and the reduction of our carbon footprint will be an integral part of the process. Whilst the work is undertaken, planning of staff activity, use of available space and flexible arrangements, including working from home, will be addressed as appropriate, with staff being involved in those discussions and decisions as far as reasonably possible. The total budget for the programme is set out at Section 10 of the report, and I move this proposal.
Thank you very much indeed, Zoe. Again, another helpful, detailed report on an important issue. Simon and then Teresa.
Yeah, thanks very much, Zoe, and thanks for the report to the team who put this together. It's a fantastic piece of work. I just wanted to stress, I mean, you mentioned it very briefly, Zoe, in what you were saying there, the fact that despite closing our council building, the services have continued. I mean, how amazing is that our staff have been able to do that, losing the office space like that overnight, literally overnight, but they just carried on as if nothing happened. I don't think most of our residents actually noticed that the service level had been maintained despite all the mad sort of paddling away that the swan you see floating gently across the lake is doing underwater. So I think we really need to acknowledge that point again and again, if you like. That's about organisational skills, that's about hard work and dedication to delivery of what we wanted. So the council staff deserve huge praise for that, along with leadership from Richard and his team at the top there. So that's just one thing that worth mentioning more than once. I just wanted to pick up on a couple of things in terms of the refurbishment of the building. Really pleased. The third sort of area of importance that's attached to this is the greening, the retrofitting of the building, making it an environmentally friendly space for the staff and all the work that goes into that. And I just wanted to sort of, in terms of how we're, as a council, we are really developing our skills in this area, more than most other local authorities, certainly, and more than most industries and businesses as well. We've delivered at Cossington Park, a really environmentally friendly building there. That was something we picked up, and that's been delivered, and it's working brilliantly well. And Wharf is another huge project on a scale which will be environmentally friendly at the end of the day. And that is something that we can really take those skills and knowledge into the community of Medway to say, look, it's possible to live in a low carbon life and low impact life on the environment and yet maintain the standards of living that we all appreciate. It can be done. We've learned from colleagues at Mid-Kent College who've done the same with their building. And we're learning from colleagues at Greenwich University who've helped. And our climate team and our regen team in general now have a load of skills and expertise in that area of retrofitting and refurbishment and creating an environmentally friendly built community. And we can really use those as we go forward. So a huge thanks all round. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Simon. Teresa?
Yeah, thank you, Simon. Thank you very much, Zoe, for all of your hard work on this and the teams of officers. And absolutely, I want to see the open procurement as soon as possible. This really is the phoenix rising from the ashes. As Simon has said, it's an opportunity to modernise, to try new techniques, to make the building environmentally friendly. But more than that, it's an opportunity, actually, that RAAC has ironically given us to repair years of neglect. That building has never had a proper depreciation budget. The staff have worked in actually terrible conditions. And I defend proudly the ability to do this. Our staff, our residents who come into the building deserve decent conditions. They deserve to have clean floors to walk on, curtains that actually work, comfortable chairs that make sure we take care of their posture, and technology and environmental tools to make sure that the whole place is comfortable. They absolutely deserve those, as all workers do. We should be a gold standard employer leading the way to others. And one of the really positive things is we will be able to share our experiences with other people setting up in Medway or people who want to improve their buildings and show them how this can be done. The specialists that we require to help us deal with RAAC will hopefully be forthcoming very soon. And I do want people to understand that it is not that nothing has been happening. Things have been happening since the RAAC was discovered, and our staff have been absolutely outstanding in their kind of forbearance and flexibility that they've shown, as have the public in the building. It's got the potential to be a lovely, welcoming building. It's got some really nice garden areas that we're going to open up and get people using more so that everyone's well-being and ability to be motivated and enjoy their working environment is enhanced by this process. So I do want to thank Zoe. I don't want to thank RAAC, but it definitely gave us the kickstart that we knew was needed to make this building work properly for everybody. And I'm not interested at all in any naysayers who say silly things like you're spending this money on yourselves. We are spending this money on Medway. We're spending it on people who work here, who deserve to have good conditions. And more than that, we're making sure that the public have got a building that, after all, they own, that is fit for purpose, that they can come into, feel safe and comfortable when they want to use council services. So I'm very pleased about this, Zoe, and absolutely I support the work that you and all of the teams have done to make this happen.
Thank you very much indeed, Teresa. I've got Alex and Luella.
Thanks, Vince, and thanks, Teresa. I think that it's you make a very important point about the safety of our staff, and we've already mentioned International Workers' Memorial Day. And I always think about the stupid stories you see in the right-wing press about health and safety gone mad, usually with a quote from some bozo like Nigel Farage or one of his ilk, talking about health and safety as if it's part of this war on woke. You know, it's in his day, which isn't as long ago as it looks like it was, that you just sort of took an electric shock at work and you just went home and you dusted yourself down. And these people are morons, and we absolutely should be putting our staff's well-being at the heart of this. You know, I think about health and safety from the perspective of my grandfather's generation, one of whom was a slater and the other who was an electrical engineer. Both industries that were absolutely transformed by Health and Safety at Work Act. You know, I was just looking up when the first Health and Safety Act in the UK was, and it was the Health and Morals of Apprentices Act 1802, known as the Factory Act. I'm sure something else that Nigel Farage would think of as woke nonsense that tried to stop apprentices from being killed and used as collateral damage in the building of mill owners' fortunes. But as far as I'm concerned, this is very, it's very personal, this sort of issue. Our staff should be working in safe environments, and if RAAC is putting them at risk, then it has to be sorted. It's as simple as that. There is no way around this. And if we didn't have that regard for health and safety, then we would be remembering far more people in Rochester Castle Gardens on International Workers' Memorial Day. So I think that's something that, again, those naysayers that you speak of need to keep in mind, because the environment that people work in is critical, and sometimes the risks are not always apparent on day one. The number of people who are now suffering the effects of building materials that they were, especially in the electrical industry, the use of things like asbestos that was treated as something that you threw around like confetti, and in fact has killed thousands and thousands of tradespeople over the years. So we can't, once we know about it, we can't ignore it. We have to fix it. We have a duty to our staff. We have a duty to the people of Medway to make sure that Gun Wharf, whatever you think of its architectural merits, and I think I'm in the minority in actually being quite fond of modernist buildings and brutalist buildings, and I'm not averse to it, but I know that other people feel quite strongly the other way. But the bottom line is, whatever you think of it, whatever you think its future use should be, the consequences of not fixing things as you go can be seen all around the country in civic buildings run by administrations who put short-termism ahead of difficult financial decisions, whether it's, I was just in Glasgow at the weekend, and you know, one of my favourite things I used to do was to visit the People's Palace and Winter Gardens there, which was a fantastic social history museum owned by the people of Glasgow, and a beautiful glass house on the back of it, which provided somewhere out of the rain for people to enjoy when on the 200 plus days a year of rain in that great city. And you know, the tragedy is that with, dare I say it, a similarly sort of populist sort of administration from the SNP in Glasgow, that ended up being closed, the heating turned off because maintenance hadn't been carried out. The plants are dead. Centuries of history, things that belonged to the people of Glasgow that were just killed for want of any sort of municipal vision, because you had bean counters who were prepared to do that because they saw the price of everything and the value of nothing. So sometimes you do have to spend a bit of money on things that actually belong to the people of Medway, and whether we use it for another 50 years or whether post-local government reorganisation it's up for sale to the highest bidder, whatever the outcome is, the best thing for the people of Medway is that we're selling something that is in good condition and attracts the highest price, or alternatively delivers the greatest value for the people of Medway by providing a civic centre that staff can do the best job for the people of Medway in. So I'm very supportive of this report.
Thank you very much indeed, Alex. Luella?
Thank you. Thanks, Zoe, and thanks to the officers for the work they're doing on this, because it's long and hard, isn't it? I just wanted to support what Simon said, actually, about the staff being able to have recovery plans in place to allow them to set up almost overnight in other locations, including working from home, to keep the vital services running for the residents. So they did amazingly, actually. You've just got to get there.
Thank you very much indeed, Luella. I can't see any other colleagues. So before I come back to you, Zoe, we've been reflecting a lot over the last few weeks of 5 years ago and the terrible situation of the COVID pandemic. But of course, even with the most difficult of circumstances, positive lessons, positive thinking, positive learning can come from that. And I've got no doubt whatsoever that the ability for this organisation, which serves more than 250,000 people, to effectively have business as usual on the Monday morning after the Friday afternoon, where the chief executive phoned me whilst I was at the Science Museum during half term with my son. And I will never forget that phone call, because actually my fear at that time was this process is not going to be fixed overnight. And we've seen that. And we know, of course, elsewhere in local government, our friends down the road at Dartford, their theatre will remain closed for probably at least another 18 months. So these are not quick fixes, but as many colleagues have said, actually we've got to do this because it's the right thing to do. I quite like Wharf as a building. I wouldn't have listed it though, and that does bring some very specific challenges in this process, which is different to the Orchard Theatre or the schools or hospitals, which of course RAAC's been found in across the country. So absolutely recognise and say a huge thank you to the staff who have been incredibly flexible, and I'll be saying that, of course, in a bit more detail to all staff at the annual council meeting next week. But I absolutely recognise that flexibility to work in a number of different ways, and even though we've partially, when it's been safe to, partially reopened elements of Wharf, there's still lots of people who have been disrupted. So a huge thank you to them. And again, a huge thank you to Zoe for her leadership, along with the team that are working on this. At the end of this process, as Alex rightfully says, and Teresa's been very strong on, long before that phone call to deal with the issue of RAAC, we will have a building which will be fit for purpose for the 21st century, that will be, a good place to work. But importantly, and I think about organisations like the Medway Allotment Federation, they always used to have their AGM at Wharf. The Medway Scout Association always used to have their AGM at Wharf. There's many, many more. So I want them to not only be welcome back, but actually welcome back to a much better space. Again, not for us, not for the 2,000 plus Medway Council staff, although I want them to be comfortable. It is the people of Medway's building, and I want them to use it as much as they can, recognising that actually before May 2023, it wasn't really as open as it will be to the people of Medway in a way that we certainly have seen as a vision, and actually these bits of work that will happen over the next period of time will help us move that forward further. So full support for myself. It's an important issue. And absolutely, what we can't do is just walk away and go, there you go, there's the keys, because we've got responsibility for a Grade 2 listed building. And again, I wouldn't have put it forward for listing. I think actually there's a pretty strong cross-party consensus that we probably wouldn't do that if we were asked that question today. But to use the most well-worn phrase, we are where we are, and the process of delisting something is extremely complex and, in my view, not worth officers wasting their time on, because there's a high likelihood they would spend a lot of time to make no progress, not because they're not excellent, just because the process is incredibly complex. So it's a listed building, it's got concrete which isn't working, and we're going to fix it, and we're going to make it better for the people of Medway. Zoe, back to you.
Thank you, and thank you for comments of colleagues. The detailed assessment of the work has been undertaken now, and the work is necessary beyond doubt. But also, the repairs and refurbishment will improve the building and enhance its value and provide a modern environment for staff and visitors to our headquarters, which is really important. So we're looking forward to that being put into effect.
Thank you very much, Zoe. Are colleagues happy to agree the recommendations? Agree. Thank you. Let's move to the final Cabinet item of this municipal year. Zoe, back to you. Proposed changes to delegation limits.
Thank you. This is a straightforward item. This is the proposed changes to the scheme of delegation and financial limits in respect of property matters, and seeking Cabinet approval to update the employee scheme of delegations and consequent financial limits. That is, limits that are set for officers to take decisions on our behalf. So we're seeking Cabinet approval to update the scheme of delegations and consequent financial limits in respect of property matters as set out in Appendix 1 to the report, enabling the Council's property team to complete income-generating property transactions and transfer land and property from one council department to another more quickly and efficiently. It was agreed at the October 2024 full council to review financial rules and limits which need to be adjusted for purposes of proportionality as set out in Appendix A to the report, and the recommendation is to approve the scheme of delegations and financial limits in the respect of property matters as at option A 5.11 of the report.
Thank you very much, Zoe. Teresa?
Thank you, Zoe. And look, this is about getting on with the job and giving officers the tools that they need to do that. We know that our predecessors, the Tories, had a £4 million property disposal target sitting on their books for decades and didn't do anything about it. We've empowered officers to do that. We've had a good look at what's happening with property. We've done that in the public domain, and it's been through scrutiny as well. And now what the officers need is the empowerment to be able to get on with the job, to dispose of things that we don't need, to improve things that we do, to make sure that our tenants are in a good position, do that responsibly, do it openly, and with everybody being involved who needs to be, when it comes to properties that we are leasing or renting to people. And once and for all, not carrying things on the council's books that are not enhancing in any way services to residents and are just sitting either derelict or semi-derelict, costing us money. So I'm looking forward to this process, and this is an important technical part to give officers the freedom and the ability to use their judgment to make this thing happen even more quickly.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Any other colleague? No, if not, I'll go back to you, Zoe.
straightforwardly, this is about increasing the financial limits available to senior staff to keep up with inflation, really, isn't it? So, yeah, it's fairly straightforward.
Thank you very much. Is the recommendation agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Before we finish the meeting tonight, as it is the final Cabinet meeting of this municipal year, I just want to take a couple of moments to say a couple of thank yous. I want to echo the comments of lots of colleagues around sweeps. It was fantastic. And I want to pay particular tribute, actually, to all of the events team, our brilliant security, making sure people are safe. And I want to name one particular officer from outside of that team who made this weekend so positive, and that's Adam Taylor. It was a real privilege to be there to, they don't normally let me have pairs of scissors, but they did on Saturday, so I got to cut a ribbon. But the Limehouse landing, which was pretty much sold out for the whole weekend, there will be fantastic opportunities for residents and visitors alike to go and see the Medway from a site you probably don't get to see on the river. So enjoy that over the next few months, and I know that will be certainly something which lots of people, and the feedback on social media was fantastic. Cabinet meetings don't happen by themselves. I know the 10 of us sit here and say lots of stuff, but actually before we get to these meetings, the brilliant Democratic Services team do a lot of fantastic work, both facilitating and, of course, John and Vanessa in particular, who minute this, so thank you to you guys. To the ICT team, who make sure that those, I'm going to say hundreds of thousands of people, that might be a slight estimation overload, but you make sure that people who want to see what's happening, making our democracy as transparent as possible to do so. So thanks to that. Thanks to the team here, Paul and everybody else who makes this building, which is not perfect for meetings, but it's perfect for now. And to the comms team, thank you for what you do to make sure people know what's happening. And to our local journalists, indeed, particularly our local democracy reporter. He is contractually obliged to be here, but actually he does a good and fair job in holding this administration to account. I want to, through you, Richard, to thank the corporate management team. I think we've, over the last 2 years, managed to get through some really challenging circumstances in a really positive, collaborative way. And I want to thank my 9 other cabinet members who, day in, day out, are working hard for the people of Medway, doing things which make sure that the lives and livelihoods of our community are improved for the better. And finally, of course, we do this because we have freedom and we have democracy, and we'll be recognising that, as we have done already, particularly on Thursday. And again, I want to, ahead of Thursday, say a huge thank you to all of our partners and council officers who have made the programme we have for Thursday immense in a great way. So we'll be starting, we will proudly be flying the flag for VE Day 80. I'm very proud of that. Every day I'm the leader of this council, we'll be flying flags to recognise the important history, diversity, one Medway approach that we have. We'll then be working with our partners at the Royal Engineers. There's a fantastic service and parade in Rochester. And then, if you do nothing else, look up at the sky at 9:30 at night. We'll be part of those national and indeed international recognitions of all of those who gave their time, their energy, their effort, and in some cases made the ultimate sacrifice to ensure all of us here and everybody watching can see democracy happening in Medway and across the country. Thanks to everybody for their efforts over the last 2 years. The work continues 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Thanks very much.
you.